Welcome, everyone. We are recording, so go ahead and hit that approve. And of course, we are here for you today. I am Stacy Francis, the founder of Savvy Ladies, joined by some fantastic women. Today, we have the fourth part of our four-part series for divorce, and I'm recognizing a lot of amazing names of women who have been able to attend previous sessions. But don't worry if you missed any. In fact, we have them all recorded, and once you have registered, which is essentially means that you will get all of the recordings, not only from this evening, but from all of the other evenings before. We are going to be spending about an hour and a half together, but make sure you've got your drinks, you've got your snacks. We're going to be having a lot of fun. And I know that divorce doesn't sound fun, but what is fun is finding out how you can put yourself on a financially secure path. Who doesn't love that? And that's what Savvy Ladies is all about. We're a nonprofit 501c3 celebrating 20 years of working with women. We now work with over 5,000 women a year who go through our workshops, attend our helpline. Just last month, we had more women come to our helpline than we served in the entire 365 days of 2 years ago. So it really shows you how, number one, there is such a need, women wanting to be savvy ladies and wanting to understand more about their money, make good choices, but also just a huge kudos to the wonderful people who make Savvy Ladies go around. And the person I would love to introduce tonight, we have some of our fantastic staff members. We have Tracy Wheeler, who runs our helpline. We have Judy Herbst, who is an amazing executive director. And we have Montana Rebecca, who is everything that makes Savvy Ladies look good. Our graphics, our social media, she is the woman who makes it look so wonderful. And I'd also like to just kick it on over to our executive director, Judy, to give a formal welcome and tell you a little bit more about the fantastic, unbelievable programming that we have coming up for you in 2022.
Well, hi, everyone, and really welcome to our virtual panel program. This is really the first in a series that we're putting together about getting savvy. This was getting savvy about divorce. We will be kicking off March, April, and May with another series, Getting Success Savvy. Then we'll be moving into summer with Getting Savvy about your health and money. And we'll we're talking about doing a career confidence and credibility savvy seminar in October. So really exciting to bring you these really smart experts that can be on panels with us to have a discussion, share their expertise, share their journey, and that we can all learn together. In that fashion, I want to take this opportunity to introduce our cast of speakers tonight, which I'm really thrilled about. You heard from Stacy Francis. She is the founder of Savvy Ladies, but she's also the president and founder of Francis Financial Wealth Management. She's a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst. So the perfect person to take us on the journey and moderate tonight. Her co-moderator is Lisa Zeiderman, who's vice president of the board of Savvy Ladies and also a managing partner of her firm, Miller Zeiderman. She is a matrimonial attorney and has the wisdom and expertise that she has been sharing across all these four panels about what it takes to get all the knowledge you need to go through your divorce. She writes for Psychology Today, and she's recently been named a Crain's New York Woman Attorney of 2022. Really proud to introduce you to the moderators, really special people that I think you will really enjoy the dialogue tonight. And our panelists this evening, I'm going to start off with my good friend and colleague, Emma Johnson. who has launched Wealthy Single Mommy, a blog in 2012 that is now the largest single mom community, one of them in the world. Like, she's really taken it up a notch, and her blog has really recognized around the world. She's a business journalist, a gender equality activist, author, and founder of, as I mentioned, Wealthy Single Mommy. She, you can see her writing in the New York Times. She's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, the Times, and Oprah. She speaks beautifully on many issues, and tonight she's going to share her journey, her how she started her business, and her future thoughts on where she's going to keep her business rocking and really make a difference and change in the world for women. Samantha Gregory also is joining us this evening, another really good friend and colleague. I'm thrilled to be able and proud to have you on our panel this evening. Samantha is based in Atlanta. And really nice that we're all from all over, not just New York. Emma now is in Richmond. So love to have the Southern states represented here. Samantha, great to have you. Samantha also is an author, speaker, coach, and freelance writer. She covers women's empowerment, personal finance, and parenting issues. And she's the founder of Rich Single Mama, where Samantha guides single moms who want personal finance, advice, parenting, and professional development. She helps women thrive and not just survive the single mom journey. She's written a number of books as well. No More Crumbs, The Simple Outsourcing Guide, The Simple Guide to Online Business Guide, actually. Really a rock star. And she does all this as a side hustle because you're also a senior technical writer and instructional designer. So you're doing many things, juggling many balls and making it all happen. So I'm really looking forward to hear your story. Joining us tonight also is Rona Wexler. Rona is recognized as an employability expert, which I personally had never heard of before. So I'm really excited to learn from you tonight about what that means. You're an expert witness and vocational evaluator. You work in the field of family law with employment litigators, plaintiffs, and defense. Your work is nationwide. You provide litigation support, expert reports, and testimony on employability, earning capacity, job search diligence, as well as consulting services during mediation and collaborative divorce. So really important stuff we're going to hear from Rona tonight. Very excited about that. And Andrea Labus, she is here tonight as our psychotherapist, and she offers individual, couples, family, and group psychotherapy. Her experience includes working with high conflict custody and divorce proceedings, co-parenting through separation, divorce, and beyond. She works on many issues as well, including eating disorders, pain management, and child and adolescent school difficulties. She works also focusing on anxiety and depression, which is really, really important as well as women go through this journey. Really wonderful to have you here and the entire group of speakers we have tonight. Excited to kick off the conversation and get our panel discussion started.
Fantastic. And so tonight we are going to be diving into everything that you need to know about creating your financially secure life. Divorced women, did you know this, are more likely to live in poverty and receive public assistance than our male counterparts. And in order to face the challenges of divorce, of living on one income, well, we as women need to be fearless. We need to discover the ways to leverage our own unique talents, further our career to support ourselves. And that is what tonight is all about. We have lots of information that we're going to be going through. And I want to go ahead and get started having Lisa ask some really important questions, which I'll be following up too. But I also want to make sure that you see the chat. The chat is our magic place. That is our pot of gold. That's where we can have our conversation, where you can pose questions, where you can make comments. Savvy Ladies is a community, and most importantly, you are not alone. The number of women on this meeting tonight, half of them are starting the process of divorce. The other half shared with us that they are in process of divorce. We're all going through this journey together, and we want this to be as helpful a resource for you as we possibly can. So without further ado, I'd love to have Lisa go ahead and jump in. And I do apologize for Lisa. She is in process of coming back, I think, from court. Not that she did anything wrong, representing a client. I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. She didn't take anyone's lunch money, representing a client. So thank you again, Lisa, for coming here, being with us while you're, juggling a million balls of your cases too. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Stacy, and I appreciate that. It's a little tough these days to be both virtual and in person, which is the newest thing that we're doing in court. So some of us being in person and virtual and balancing that. But I'd like to speak to Rona first. And Rona, you and I have known each other for many years.
Yes.
And you are fabulous at what you do. But I'd love for you to explain to everyone what a vocational analyst actually is.
So they're called the vocational evaluators, employability evaluators, etc. And our role, and this vocational evaluator really came to be in response to helping people get back to work who might be in a post-event like an injury and things of that nature. So it's a very specific methodology about how we assess that individual's ability to learn or be trained. And that's the same method, and that's what the court expects, and that's the methodology I was trained in. But the difference is that for the most part, and it does occur, for the most part, I'm dealing with relatively healthy individuals or individuals who may have some health concerns, but are pretty fully functional. And if they do have limitations, we can examine those during the process. And so employability is comprised of three important elements. One is looking at one's education, training, and work experience. And in the work experience, what skills did you exercise? What did you learn? How did you grow? And what did you earn? And then the next piece to that would be doing a summary of that, and then looking at the labor market, which is, since I've been doing this, I've gone through lots of ups and downs and fluctuations, and seeing well, first we look at what positions might be a good fit, if training or extra education would help that person transition to a higher level of employment, and hopefully more satisfying, but certainly to be more self-sufficient, self-supporting, and meet their financial goals. And then the last piece of that would be looking at the labor market and taking a look at what's available, what could be available, and making a match with that. And from that, we get, okay, this person potentially has an earning capacity if they were to pursue these types of occupations. And that earning capacity is often is a contributor to the parties, hopefully coming to some settlement about what is realistic, how much time they need, et cetera, maybe other types of things. One of the things that comes up is childcare. That's up to the attorneys to work out with the parties. But I try to get the individuals to think about what, if not for that, what. But I also get cases where so many times folks haven't been back to work in some time. And what they did before may be not as up to date now. And could they go back if they got that extra training? What else could they do? How could they apply it in a different sphere?
So Rona, in answer to that, I'm going to follow up with that for a second. So that's one circumstance where you are asked to come in a court case where someone hasn't been back to work for a long time. Right. And what are some of the other circumstances in a divorce matter where you actually come in as an expert and deal with a divorce matter?
Right. So I just wanted to lay that foundation because the methodology is the same throughout. However, great many cases I get are during the divorce or after the divorce where there's been a change in employment. Okay. Someone has been laid off or simply left the job. Sometimes there have been other circumstances surrounding it. It could be because the individual stopped showing up. It could be a performance issue. It could be a lot of things. Generally, when I'm called in is because either party is saying, one of them is saying, not my fault. This is what happened. I have looked really hard and I can't find anything. And my role then becomes, well, let's take a look at that. First of all, where have you looked? How have you looked? What is the documentation you've kept to keep a good record so that you can follow up, be more effective, and tweak your plan if you need to, or seek professional coaching, because maybe you're getting in your own way and you don't know. The other thing is that sometimes the job that they did is no longer viable. I'll give you an example. In the world today, there's a lot of things going on with artificial intelligence and high-speed algorithms, particularly in the financial markets, for example. So if someone was doing trading as a person with the old school approach, that might have worked then. But now you've got these, I'll give you an example, like a 51-year-old gentleman who was really good at what he did, no longer has that job because the company contracted and they wanted younger, less expensive people doing other things. And he walks into an office with a 35-year-old manager. He says, okay, do you do computer coding? The spreadsheets are really nice, but we don't do that. So that's pretty discouraging. And then we have to figure out, well, you've got all these skills. Where else can you put them? What else can you do to earn the best income you can do using all of you? Okay. And sometimes it's also because, like, I'll be brought in because the spouse doesn't believe that the other spouse was really looking. They think that this came awfully close to the divorce. I think that's been manipulated, etc. And sometimes that could be the case, not sure. And other times it really is a very bad time situation. So that's why looking at the efforts about looking for work and how it was done, not passively, not only looking at job postings, etc., and how much time that they spent doing it, and can really talk to it with some specificity, will help me understand what the effort really has been.
Rona, are you aware of the term, and I know you are, but this term of imputation of income? It comes up a lot in divorce cases. We talk about imputing income to someone, whether they are working at a particular job or they're not working at all. Can you explain to everyone what imputation of income actually means?
And my understanding with imputation is that this is what you're capable of earning. Whether you want to pursue that or not is another story, but you have the ability, you have the time, you have the health, etc., to continue or to pursue or get reemployed in this type of work. And given what that type of work pays, will help the parties or the judge decide what income will be imputed, or shall we say assigned to that individual as a reasonable expectation.
So for many women who are out of the workforce, and that frankly is a big part of our clientele. Sure. Women who have been out of the workforce sometimes 10, 20 years maybe, okay, or more. And yet they're in court and somebody wants to impute income to them. What are some of the considerations that you, as in your vocational evaluation, must make to assign income to those women? I mean, and I'll just say, I have clients who come to me who maybe haven't worked in 20 years, and they say to me, but I haven't been in the workforce. I'm not going to be able to go out and work. How do you go about imputing income to those women?
So, very good point. And I see this all the time. And by the way, I see also women tell me, I'm too old. I'm 42. Okay. You got 23 more years, 20 more years or more, 23 years or more that's expected in your work life expectancy. So we got to figure this out. So part of what we talk about is how someone can transition into the workforce, maybe getting some additional training for a while. And you know this, Lisa, I frequently advise people to seek out a professional career advisor or job search coach to get you out of that stuck position that in the mindset that this is impossible. And there's a lot of resentment about it and fear, and very understandably. And then So to get them into that and see how they can build up to get back into the workforce. A lot of these people will be getting, hopefully, some type of maintenance, maybe for a specified period of time. My advice to them is do not wait until this runs out to get started on this process. This is supposed to get you in a whole place, WHOLE, so that you are launched. That's the purpose of it. Sometimes these individuals talk to me about getting extra training and education. And, if it's going back to grad school to become a fine artist, that's something that's very difficult for me to recommend because there's very little imputation of income from that I can realistically, based on evidence, really offer. But so that's part of what we do. I also try to help people understand because they really come in sometimes very with expectations it's going to be a very hostile kind of thing. And my point is, look, let's relax. No matter what the decision is, and I've opened up with this, nobody's saying that you have to do anything. If there is income imputed, and sometimes there's not very much at all, and sometimes there's more than they expected, it's one of the factors you use to make your financial decisions. And part of it might be going back to work. The other thing that does come up, Lisa, is sometimes they get a lot of advice from their friends, as you know, the non-lawyer advice. It can drive people crazy. So, they'll get something from a lot of their peers that will say, or have they been through their own, don't go back to work at all. Wait until it's done. It's going to hurt you. Now, my professional opinion is if at least you get started in the process, you begin to seek out your options, you start talking to people, you keep records. I think personally that the court will look at that more favorably than just not doing anything. And sometimes just getting started on it will begin to build some more confidence about, there's more that I can do than I thought. I can take a look at this a little bit better.
So, you make a very good point, and I'm going to follow up on that point because, people do ask me that question, whether I should start now or shouldn't I just wait until it's all over? And, the problem, and you tell me if I'm misspeaking, Rona, in your professional opinion, but the problem with waiting is that likely some income is going to be imputed to you no matter what. Right. Because and particularly in today's job market, because there is such a scarcity of employees. So isn't it better for them to get out there and do something that might interest them, even if it's an entry-level position, if they haven't been in the workforce for a long time, than to just wait? And that wait, by the way, could be years, right? I mean, in the world that we're in.
You are so right, Lisa. I mean, one of the big frustrations about this is, so let's say you're going to wait and I want to wait until my kids are older. Okay. Maybe they're in middle school. I want to wait until they're launched. Well, by that time, you're 6 years older. You've been out of the workforce another 6 years. So it's going to be a longer road to get your skills up to speed and see what's out there. And now you are likely going to incur some age discrimination. It does happen. It doesn't mean you can't work, it just means it takes a little longer. But and also it makes you feel better. And one of the things I've told people is, when you have kids this age, kind of the ages I was saying, it's everything you've known, it's everything you've done. It's really hard to think outside of this. It's been such an important role that you've played. But I'm telling you, when you raise kids in that period of time, it goes like that, goes like a flash. You look back and you go, why didn't I pay more attention? But that's a whole other story. But and what my mom went back to work, and I think there was a necessity for it. She did it because she wanted to make sure her girls went to college. Okay, she didn't think my father could really pull that off, and she was right. But I think, I said, and if you've got kids, they're going to whine. They're going to be kind of annoyed that they have to do more around the house, but that's their job, to whine and push back, But underneath it all, as they see you start to change and to start taking control, secretly, they're proud of you, because they're worried about what's going to happen to you a bit too when they leave, okay? and you're not the center, they're not your center. So there's a reason you've got a lot of years past child raising years to get yourself together. It's a new chapter, and I would hope, it's just hard to see that when you're in the middle of the fear and the anxiety and the thoughts about poverty that may or may not be as great as you imagine them to be, and all the other emotions that carry you through this divorce journey. So I try to keep the interviews more positive, but also, and I think you've seen that, but also to to help people. Look, one of the last lines I use is, look, there are options out there. There are things you can do.
And
you
Rona,
may not hear me now. I don't think you're ready to embrace this, maybe at this very moment. But when the time is right, as you move through this, I think you will be able to see things somewhat differently. And then you'll see what decisions you'll make.
Lisa, I want to just jump in and ask you a question. It's a technical question, but it's one that I think a lot of people are thinking in the back of their mind. In the chat, one of our participants, mentioned a gentleman who's 65. He's been let go of his job due to the pandemic, has not been able to get that job. Could income be imputed? And let's just throw it on the other foot. She worked for a small business. The business went out of, and she's now out of work. She's 65. There are many more, we call them gray divorce, late in life divorces.
Yep.
Lisa, do you see imputing income at these ages as well? And when are we not going to find ourselves in that position?
Stacy, I do find people having imputed income in their 60s and sometimes even in their 70s. So let's look at it a couple of different ways. If you have children who still need to be supported, the court is likely to impute income to you. And that's because the children still need to be supported. So you can't just say, hey, you know what, I have these young children and I can't work and I can't support them and I have no assets to do that. And walk away. These children have to be supported. And then, of course, people who retire, they may also have income from other sources, investment income, retirement income, Social Security, disability income. All of that could be part of the income level that is imputed to them in some way. So, and then you have to think about the practicality. You might be before a judge who is he or she is in their 70s and still working. That judge is not going to have much sympathy for somebody who is 62 and not working and not supporting their family. So, part of it is reading the room, which I always say you have to read the room. But as we are all, as the population is aging, and as people are working longer, sometimes into their 80s and even 90s, I have to say, I think you have a very real possibility of having income imputed to you if you are in your 60s.
Yeah, I know I'll be coming in my little Zimmer frame, my little walker, and people will be saying, Stace, you got to stop. You're more of a liability. Go home. Yeah, I mean, we live longer, we live healthier. And so the expectation is different.
Well, also the expectation on those parties is that they're still looking for the same kind of job that they had, and they think that's all. They're not pivoting. Okay, so at a certain point, you have to take a look at the real world and say, I'm pursuing this path. I'm getting nowhere really. So I need to rethink what my direction is, because I have children to support. I have obligations, etc. And but I get a lot of those who, even men in their 50s, late 50s, they get cut out of a job that they've had for a long time, earning relatively good or very good money. And the expectation that they continue to do that in exactly the same way has to be investigated.
So I'm going to turn to Samantha if I can. Rona, thank you so much for that insight. Samantha, you and I don't know each other, so I'm actually looking forward to having this conversation. What does it mean to you to be a single mom?
Wow, that's a great question. Initially, it was fear and trembling because I'm responsible for all of this by myself. But now it means I get to make the decisions for myself and my household, for my children, without a lot of friction and maybe toxic behavior from a partner or someone else or an ex. So I feel more empowered as a single mom. It's not an easy road for sure, but it doesn't have to be a struggle from the time it starts to the time you end it, which it really doesn't ever end. But it's a journey, and so I think that's what it is. It's a place where you can grow and stretch and become the best version of yourself because you get that time alone without a lot of noise and distraction of a partner who is demanding a lot from you. You do have your children, they do demand a lot, but you get to become your own person. And so I had to actually redefine, am I a single mom? Is that my label? No, I'm a single woman with children who's healthy, who's able to grow and thrive and become the best version of myself. And so that's kind of how I redefine this whole journey and experience.
And how do you juggle your career path while juggling the care of your child? I think that's the big question that everybody really has.
Yeah, that well, now my children are grown, they're adults now, but when they were younger, juggling them was with a lot of help from family and friends. I did have support. I did have people who I could rely on, not all the time necessarily, but the juggling piece again was taking a step back because I found myself being overwhelmed with all the responsibility, all the things, and feeling like I was failing somehow because, first of all, I'm in this situation. Second of all, I'm only one person. And then third of all, how do I manage juggle all these balls and keep all these plates spinning? Well, I had to make some boundaries for myself and say, you know what, I can't do it all. I won't do it all. I will not have my kids do all these different programs. So I'm running here and there every single day. One thing, one thing this year or this quarter, however we decide to do it. And then making time for myself. And then the other things that I needed to do, I just had to manage my expectations. Really, you really have to manage your expectations. It cannot be I have to do it all. And I did fall into that trap of being the superwoman and super mom, but I got burned out really fast on that. And again, the managing expectations and saying I cannot do it all. I will not do it all because if I do, then I'm going to make myself sick. Because I did go through a space and time where I was super stressed out. My body began to rebel. I had to just sit down and rethink some things and then get help from my kids. I had to teach them how to do different things in the household. I had to give them responsibility so that they could wash dishes. They could learn how to wash their own clothes. They could make their own beds. And I started teaching them how to cook. My son, he started learning how to cook very early because he had an interest in it. My daughter learned how to cook as well. So dividing up our household responsibilities, that really helped a lot. So the juggling it began to ease up. It wasn't as soul sucking as I find a lot of single moms are going through, and they feel like they have to do everything on their own when you really don't. It's just a matter of learning how to delegate it, teaching your kids these responsibilities and allowing them to learn and grow with you.
Samantha, I love what you shared, and I just want to invite everyone. We want to start a conversation in the chat. How do you juggle your career and children? Please share. And whether you've got kids at home or it was, 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, I'd love to have some rich conversation there as we include Emma in this conversation as well. So Emma, you've created an amazing community for women going through divorce. You've been through divorce. How did you move yourself forward, and how did you adjust to living on one income with a family, with everything that comes along with it?
Well, it was really out of necessity, which is the reality for the vast majority of women who are unpartnered, right? Most just some quick statistics. Most unpartnered parents are not married. There's no divorce. There's certainly no alimony, and there's usually no child support. Women are working and earning because they have to eat. It's not a choice. And so I was kind of caught in the middle of two demographics. I was married. I had chosen to be a stay-at-home mom, thinking that was what the thing to do was, dependent on my husband's high income. And my divorce was preceded. My ex-husband had a major brain trauma. And so our lives quickly unraveled. I had two babies in quick succession right at that moment. So it was just one of these times in life when, like, giant collisions, everything fell apart. And so it started off sort of like the divorce lawyers were fighting, the kids, that they were going to stay with me and I was going to get the child support, and I did. But he was not able at that time to participate in that. I could see that from the very beginning. I'm like, this is on me. I'm going to have to do this on my own. So how am I going to do it? And I think that for me personally, that was the absolute best thing that could have ever happened to me. It was not the best thing for him. He was in a bad situation. And thankfully he has recovered largely. He's got a lovely new wife and has a career, and that's another story, but just in case you were wondering, and I know people do wonder. So for me, it was really just out of necessity. And I'm a child of divorce. I just randomly was just always very interested in how my own single mother and my parents' divorce affected me. It was always a very keen interest of mine. And so I was like, look, what do I have? What resources do I have? And I have a very deep sense of gratitude in my life. That was very much a tool of mine getting through those dark years. And I thought, well, you focus on what I do have. And before I had kids, I had a thriving writing business, and I had connections, and I lived in New York City where it's easy to get business done. And I'm like, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do what I have, and I'm just going to do what and I just focused on what I could do. And the other big thing that kept recurring to me as these other lovely women were speaking, one thing that's always been very powerful for me is surrounding myself with the right people. So if you're moving from one phase of life to another, whether it's out of a marriage into singlehood, if it's figuring out how to pivot your career, maybe getting back into the workforce after being out of it as a parent, you have to be surrounding yourself with the right people, right? If you're used to hanging out with the mommies on the playground and they're all about that lifestyle, they are not your people. That doesn't mean that they can't be your friends and they're your mommy friends and you're going to talk about all those mommy things with them. You have got to be somewhere where people are talking about business and work. And especially in today's marketplace with technology, as Rona was saying, things are changing so quickly. Like, the job boards aren't going to tell you what the opportunities are. You have got to be networking in really organic ways and just talking to people to learn, but also to get those connections and get your brain going and understanding, like, gosh, this person's cousin on the other side of the country is doing something that's super interesting to me, that I maybe can do that. Maybe I can pull a quick phone call with that person and talk to them. This is how I see things happening. And also transitioning. So just quickly, I started my freelance business. I was making money. That was exciting. And I started this blog, Wealthy Single Mommy. And that was 10 years ago. And now it's a large business. And that's what I do. And I've got a staff and the whole thing. And I pivoted that into activism. So now I spend a lot of the hours of my day and a lot of my money promoting equally shared parenting after divorce. So I'd love an opportunity to dig into that, because you asked about juggling. Well, right now I can do this because I have half my time. My kids are with their dad and my good looking boyfriend is cooking dinner in the other room. I got a lot of time on my hands to build a meaningful life. And that's great for me and that's great for my family, but really it's great for the kids. There's more than 100 pieces of really excellent science that show that the more equality there is in parenting time, the better it is for kids. So, and that also plays into gender equality, right? So if we have our kids are growing up seeing their mom and their dad being equal caregivers, seeing their mom and their dad working and thriving and earning their own money. Again, this is really great for all of us long-term, and it's great for the kids. And I see that firsthand in my family for sure, and the many women that are connected in my network. So I'll shut up now.
No, Emma, and thank you so much. And I do want to just bring everyone back to the chat. I put in the link Wealthy Single Mommies, so you can go ahead and check it out. Check out all the amazing work that Emma is doing. I'd love to hear from you, Samantha. How did you pivot back into the workforce too. I mean, after being out for a while, it's frightening, it's scary. You have to redo your resume. It's maybe not the network that you've had for many years. Or even if you are in the workforce, realizing like, I got to get my big game on, that this job I have earning me $60,000 a year, while it's great, I need to earn more. So how
Sure.
do you do
So,
that? And what would you recommend?
wow, that's a great question. So what I ended up doing, I was working, but I found that I needed to go back to school. And for me, that was good for the time that I was in. Now, I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't give that same advice, but it did mean that I was going and relearning things, learning a new skill. And I think upskilling is so crucial. Taking advantage of what you already know, adding more to that, seeing what is, I hate to say the word trending, but that is kind of where the workforce is going. And when you know what is needed, what's in most in demand, and you can take some free classes, whether it's at a library, with your library card, or LinkedIn Learning, what have you, there's so many free resources out there you can tap into so that you can attain those skills. And if you're already on the job, take advantage of the free training on the job. A lot of people miss that. It's so important to take advantage of the free training that is on the job, and then add that to your resume while you're still at that job, and put the resume out there, LinkedIn, some other job boards, networking, like Emma said, that is so crucial. And then gathering up your courage, gathering up your confidence, because I think a big key that a lot of people miss is, okay, I've not been working for a while, or I've never been in this field, so how do I do it? And I'm scared, I'm nervous. Well, building up your confidence is going to be really key, really crucial. Talking with people you trust, going through interview questions, because there's so many interview questions out there now where you can tap into that and see and just kind of run through it. Checking out your favorite company's website, finding out who works there. Can I talk with you for a little while? Just kind of pick your brain a bit. And then putting out that good positive energy and saying, you know what, if it's for me, it's for me. I want this. I'm going to go for it. I'm doing all the things and getting that ball rolling, getting the momentum going, so that you can find yourself in a really lucrative job, a really lucrative career that fits you and your lifestyle. And I think as people, as single moms, as divorced moms, when we find positions that fit our lifestyle, specifically, I think the ones that work most are maybe in IT, because you have a more flexible schedule. You don't have to worry about the what's it called, where they want you to come in on these different shifts. The 9 to 5 shift is pretty great for a mom, a single mom, or 7 to 3. If you can have some flexibility and all of that, that's even better. And then of course, if you can be virtual work from home, all the better. So I think that if you go through the upskilling process, if you learn on the job, if you take advantage of free resources, and you update your resume and bounce off ideas with some people you really trust, then you can get to where you want to be.
Samantha, thank you so much. I mean, such great advice. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's in the chat. Sarah just shared some great stuff of, how it ends up opening doors, unexpected doors. Fantastic. Now, Lisa, I know you have some questions for Andrea. And so we're going to put Andrea in the hot seat. We've got some important questions for you as well.
This isn't quite the hot seat. I'm not exactly
exactly. That's true.
I'm not testifying right now, so it's okay.
You're not testing. I know this is like the cocktail seat.
Exactly. This is way easier. I got my cup of water. I'm good.
Exactly.
So Andrea, I know that you have dealt with so many people going through divorce, and you're so amazing. Can you tell everyone what the different stages of divorce that you observe as a professional are for people?
Sure. First of all, it's not unlike any other life-changing event. However, when people are going through divorce, separation, custody, they're absolutely under the microscope. So something that I say is, whatever you're going to convey, please tell your lawyer, because your lawyer is your greatest advocate. And please reveal to your attorney your mental health history. If you've ever been in a hospital, if you've ever had a relationship that's questionable, had a divorce, if your children are on medication, there's no secrets with your counsel. And, you know, you might be very angry with the person you are divorcing. But if you want to be angry with them, stay together and go to couples counseling, because that attachment, that anger is not going to serve you well. And the one litmus test question that I ask everybody who comes to see me, and I've been at this for 32 years, is if you could go back and not meet this person, but it would mean not having, if they have children, would you do it? And there are only 2 occasions where someone said to me, I would go back and undo my children. You have to remember what was good about this and take the high road and tell the truth and not get embroiled in a she said, he said, she said, all the machinations of that. If they want to take the low road, that's up to them. You need to take the high road and be forthright. And I want to say this because everybody's touched on it. And Lisa, you know this about me. There's something I say to everybody who comes to see me, which is, you are not one man away from welfare. I understand you've had a full-time job as a parent. I understand you've had a full-time job as a spouse. Are you competent at these things? Well, of course I'm competent. Well, that means that you can be competent in a capacity to earn money. And you need to hold on to that, because the judge is a person who earns far less than maybe you think. And they're up there 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And they have experience with everybody under the sun. And you need to feel like you're competent enough to care for yourself and your family. So that's very important to me as a clinician.
So Andrea, you know, we meet so many women, right, who are in that situation, who have been staying at home. And obviously we meet men too, who have had this situation, but frankly, more women than men still, right, who are staying at home and taking care of the children, and then find themselves in a situation where they are now seeing the Ronas of the world, right? And being told by judges that they need to go out and work. And although they will get some alimony, perhaps it's not going to be long enough. And perhaps it does not meet all the expenses, because now we have 2 households instead of 1 household. And we can't, you know, we may have been in a situation where we weren't making it, you know, we didn't have this large excess even with 1 household and 1 income. So how do you guide those women into juggling their children, their divorce, frankly, and going out to work? Okay, because that's, in some cases, that is our clients, right? They are now juggling their divorce. They're answering their discovery demands. They're arriving for depositions. They are having to be in court. They're trying to still be the primary caregiver of their kids because they want to hold on to that role. And they now have to go out and find a job. How do you guide those women?
So I appreciate that it's a complete shift for them. And what I say is, you now have 3 full-time jobs. You had a full-time job, which was being a parent. Now you have a second full-time job, which is being a litigant, because maybe you're not that litigious, but your future ex is. And you also have another job, which is to find that thing which will provide you income so that you are not one ex-spouse away from poverty. Tell me the things that you were good at over the last 5-10 years. Well, I ran the PTA. Oh, I ran all the sales. Oh, I was ahead of something at this club. So you know how to do PR. You know how to party plan. I used to, go into my kids' classroom so you could substitute teach. And people don't realize that those things are readily available. And it takes a lot of support and a lot of faith that they can do these things. And even though it's scary, as was pointed out, it's a lot scarier to not be able to earn your own money. It's a lot harder.
Now, Emma had talked about the fact that, she believes, and I think you do too, that every child needs 2 parents in their lives. And so why do you think, as a professional, as a psychotherapist, and in your professional capacity, why that's so important to have both parents involved in a child's life?
So kids know where they come from. And biologically, they're 50% each parent, but they are 100% themselves. And when somebody puts their ex down, they're harming their child. They're conveying to their child that there's a part of the child that is actually not good or acceptable. And kids really internalize that. And while there may not always be a 50-50 schedule at the end of the day, whatever time each parent spends with that child is kind of sacrosanct to me. It's important. It should not be disturbed. And that's really because I'm kid focused. I never talk about mom's schedule, dad's schedule. I talk about the child's schedule with each parent, because it's not your time with Johnny, it's Johnny's time with you. And you have to reframe this, because while you chose to not be with their other parent, I can't get my feet in their little shoes, but I'm going to try. And it's hardest on them. So it's really important that you kind of let go of that accusatory stance and appreciate that this was somebody you care enough to have kids with. And here are your kids. Give them an opportunity to build a healthy relationship with that other parent, even if you're not there.
Now, there is and I'm going to say this because this is probably one of the most important points for people who are going through divorce and are involved in custody situations. There are so many cases where people do not get the custody that they wish they could have had because they were unable, and these are the words, right, to foster a relationship with the other parent. I mean, you and I have spoken about this. Cindy, who was on this call and is a member of many of the Savvy Ladies committees, she is also a therapist. She and I have spoken about this, and we speak about this all the time. What does it mean to foster a relationship with the other parent?
So that's a fabulous question. And in my experience, it's probably the highest standard that a judge will look at, a forensic evaluator will look at, a child's therapist will look at and be reflective of, which means you support your child or children enjoying a relationship with that other parent. It means that if there's a decision to be made, you actually consider what that other parent's input might be through the lens of your child. It's not about you, it's about your child. And it's about your child being able to talk to you or that other parent equally about anything that's on their mind, whether it's playing sports or attending a private school. It's about supporting the dialogue and the relationship with the other parent. Even though you don't want to be with them anymore, your kid is going to be with them forever in some way. So fostering means supporting, it means encouraging, and it means recognizing that other parent has some contribution to make.
And what are some of the things that people can do to foster a relationship? So you mentioned some collaboration, but there's also, we have so many cases where parents just don't like each other anymore, right? And they are angry. And so what are some of the things that they need to watch out for, or to actually do in a positive way to make sure that they are fostering a relationship with the other parent?
So one thing that's actually pretty easy, it's Christmas. Mom is with the kids. Hey, how about we make dad a card and sit down and make dad a card and encourage them to share something lovely with the other parent. Hey, it's mom's birthday. Is there something you think we should write to her? Should we get her something? Kids can't go shopping. Maybe they don't want to buy a gift. Maybe they want to make something. Support them in enjoying that relationship and demonstrate that even if you don't like it, you're that person, your kids don't really need to know that. And they can feel it. They can feel it, and they see your eye roll, and they overhear your phone calls with your friends. Please, it hurts them. I can tell you this more than almost anything when they overhear it or they're subjected to it. Oh, you know how your mom is. Oh, you know your dad does that. Cuts to the quick. It's not fostering. On the other hand, Dad is really good at math. Mom is really good at math. Should we give them a call? Do you want to ask? I don't know the answer to that question. It doesn't hurt you, and it helps your child show we're all allowed to have a relationship, even if we're not living under the same roof anymore.
But you find, Andrea, too, that can be very healing. So, for example, I make a big point of talking to my kids about like good memories I have when I was with your dad, or even like funny stories that he told me about his childhood. I mean, he could tell them himself, but maybe he forgot, whatever. But just having this positive sort of just a natural part of our everyday life, right? And for me, it's very healing, because when I am just so angry at him all the time, it reminds me of the good things, reminds me of the good times too. And it just brings a lot of good vibes into our house and relationships.
So I think what you describe is very fortunate. Unfortunately, for the work I do, it's not that common, where people can, I mean, I've had people tell very innocuous, happy stories. Why did you tell our kids that? And it becomes a problem. So I think it's really knowing your ex. And not all people share equally their parenting time. Some it's 90-10, some it's not so much, some is very much like what you described for yourself. And I think it's really tailoring that like a fingerprint to each and every family, knowing that you can take the high road, you can share good memories because you were with this person and you did have children with this person. And isn't that something worth holding on to?
Elisa, can you share what you see in your practice? I mean, that I think what you kind of alluded to, but you could unpack, is that judges will hold that against you if they see that you're getting in the way of the other parent's relationship, and that can come back and bite you in the butt really hard.
So I think that that's 100% true. I mean, judges definitely want to see fostering of a relationship. They want to see that dad's picture is in the child's bedroom. Okay, that you have, to Andrea's point, you've bought the Father's Day card, or if you're the dad, the Mother's Day card, that you are showing the child that having both parents is really important. I remember being before a judge and someone asked that question of how do you foster a relationship? And of course, it wasn't something that we were actually focused on in the trial. And so I objected. And the judge said, no, I want to hear this. And my client, to my great, enthusiasm, said something like the following: well, I always make sure to speak positively about him. I actually, if my son has a question about science, and this goes to Andrea's point, okay, my son has a question about science, I say to him, why don't you call your dad? He's so much better at science than me. Or when I'm at a school play, I leave the seat next to me ready for him to sit down so that actually he has a seat. When I meet him on the street for the exchange, I watch my body language. I think about what I'm saying. I make sure that my child is ready to go for his visit, that I pack his stuff up. I make sure he has his favorite book, that the visit is going to be as enjoyable as possible. So Emma, you're 100% correct that judges really look at that. And particularly, and I know that, while 50-50 may be for a lot of parents, to Andrea's point, it's not always. And if you want to be, frankly, the primary custodian of your child, if that is your goal, then you best be able to foster this relationship, because the judge is not so concerned at this stage with whether it is 50-50 or it's 65-35 or it is 25-75. What the judge is concerned about is that both children have a meaningful relationship with both parents, and that it's not necessarily about the time, but it is about the fact that it's a good, solid relationship.
And that's a big change from years past. I mean, I've been divorced for 12 years, and I have seen dramatically the culture. I mean, it's so different all over the country. You're in New York City, so I'm communicating with women all throughout North America. So it is very different, urban, rural. It is very, very different by jurisdiction, but overall the trend. And I mean, I went into my divorce thinking, oh, there's going to be like a trial and we're going to fight tooth and nail and, destroy each other in court. Like that doesn't happen anymore. It is moving in a really positive direction. I'm seeing, I mean, you're seeing in New York City, So it's calling people to their higher selves overall. I mean, that's a gross generalization, but I'm really seeing positive trends in that regard.
I mean, one of the things that I see as a therapist is that someone may be in therapy and they've nasty grammed their ex. They write terrible text messages, they write terrible emails because their therapist, who's very well intentioned, wanted them to get it off their chest. Those things come back to bite too, because while that's all well and good, it's not helpful to your children to be endlessly venting at their other parent. And Lisa, I'm sure you would agree, those things should be contained in therapy, and then the constructive communications need to come. Hi, we have a meeting with the math teacher. Are you available to join us? Is far better than, I had a meeting with the math teacher and something happened. You have to invite and encourage, because at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about your children. I don't know what you think about that, Lisa, but that's really my experience. Those nasty grams and text messages, those will bite harder than they speak for themselves. Nobody asks you what you meant.
And Andrea, the worst part is sometimes they don't speak for themselves, and you are asked at trial to read them out loud
Into the
and
transcript.
and I always say to clients, do not make yourself, or me for that matter, feel like I want to jump under the table at trial when you are reading them aloud on that witness stand. So you have to know that the things you write, and frankly the things you say, are going to be important as you're proceeding through the divorce, because they will come back to bite you. And, you know, Emma, you said something which is interesting. So in New York, and you're right, you know, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I know in New York, we as a firm handle many custody disputes, and they are highly litigious. And those texts and those emails, they all come in as evidence. And as do, you know, unfortunately, the tapes and everything else. And so you have to really think before you speak and write. So it's an interesting thing.
And I would add one thing that is very important to me when I'm working with someone, which is they have a good team. They have a lawyer that they're working with, because I stay in my lane. I'm never going to give legal advice. And they need to have their accounting person, whether it's through their law firm or not, like, don't play games. Have your people and know how to talk to your people and listen to your people. I'm not going to give advice on what you should do when you go to court. That's for your counsel. Will I help you learn how to talk to your ex? Absolutely. Will I help you learn how to co-parent and speak with your children? Yes. Will I tell you if you should file a motion? Absolutely not. And I think it's really important that you wouldn't go to a podiatrist for a heart attack. Make sure you have specialized people in your life if you are pursuing a divorce, if you are involved in a custody matter, because specialization is everything, in my opinion.
Thank you so much. I want to ask a quick question, and then Emma, I have a few questions for you. A question came in the chat, and Lisa, I'd love for you to share, just in your experience, if you've worked on custody cases where the teens don't want to be with a parent. And so my son is turning 16 today, and I informed him, I said, now that you're 16, you're old enough to take your little sister to martial arts. You can go on your own, you're totally fine. And of course, he wasn't so excited about this. And, you know, literally, I can't physically, he's like almost 6 foot, and he weighs, you know, God knows how much more than me. I can't carry him. And I told him, I'm like, I can't force you to do it. He's like, I know. I'm like, well, I can take away video games for the rest of your life. But like, obviously, that's not a good solution with custody of, you know, if you don't go see your dad, I'm taking away video games for the rest of your life. Has that happened? And what did you do in that situation? Do you bring someone in like Andrea? Like, what do you do? What do you do?
So there's those cases come up a lot. And in New York, as I think in many states, we have, first of all, attorneys for children, which we don't, I'm an attorney for children at times, so I am on the panel, and I do represent children, and I am appointed by the court to do so. And as an attorney for the children, I have to actually express, and this is so important to understand this difference, I have to express what the child actually wants. So if your child decides, Stacy, that dad is great at letting me watch those video games all the time, and mom, she is really difficult about this, and I'd rather live with dad than mom, well, then it's my job to go in to court and say that my client, meaning your 14-year-old son, wants to live with dad. And the court will absolutely consider this. It is a strong factor. And as the child gets older, it becomes a stronger factor. 14 is pretty up there. And if there's no real alienation, if there's no real undermining, this child, first of all, your son, will probably vote with his feet at some point. He just won't go to you. He'll go to dad. And that's where he's going to stay. And what are we going to do about that? Not much, because pretty soon he's going to turn 15 or 16. And, there's only so much the court can do. And you're not going to physically be able to take him. So you have to really kind of understand that different from parents who are together, a child at 14, at 13, certainly at 15, has a lot of say, and the court cases say this, and they will exert that ability to state their preferences, and the court must take that into consideration.
Well, that's pretty scary, because I know where my kids are going. I mean, I went up to Vermont. I took my team up at Francis Financial, gone for 3 days. They were like, "You're gone for 3 days? Really?" Yeah. They were having a party. They were having a ball. So needless to say, I know it would happen in my case. But more serious thing, I want to shift to the topic that we've been talking about as well, about starting a career or upping your career. And I'd like to get some different opinions of what the biggest pitfalls you see. And I'm going to go to you first. But what do you see as the biggest pitfall for women as they're building their career after divorce? And I'm going to actually, if you don't mind, Samantha, get your opinion, and you too, Rona. But Emma, what do you think? What do you see?
I think that especially women overall, I mean, I know there's so much wonderful research around this. Women overall, and especially after a breakup or divorce, we hold ourselves back because we believe our children need us full time. And there is a huge and really wonderful body of research that shows that is actually not true at all. There is 2 quick studies. One was Kathleen McGinn at Harvard. She studied 20,000 families around the globe, around the whole world, 20,000 families, and found that families where the mothers worked for pay outside the home, the kids, the daughters did better academically, and they did better professionally throughout their entire lives. And the sons did just as well academically and professionally, but were more helpful to people in the home. So younger siblings, older relatives living inside the home, and they were equally as happy as their stay-at-home mom sons, and the daughters were happier with the working moms. So long story short, when women moms work for pay outside the home, or these days inside the home, but for pay professionally, there is more gender equality outside the home, and there's more gender equality inside the home. And my other favorite piece of research was a meta study that some academics at the University of Maryland did. So they looked at 34 studies, they crunched all the numbers, and they found that actually after the age of 2, so little babies do benefit from a lot of intensive parenting time, but after age 2, they do not. They do not do better. And in fact, the researchers concluded that all the anxiety that women face from the poverty that ensues from not working is actually more harmful to the kids than what we have. And we have been taught this since we were born, that the stay-at-home mom is better, that our highest calling as women is to be mothers, that the family thrives when we stay home, and there's some virtue in the sacrifice. And thank you fully for the social sciences. We know that has been so liberating for me, and I shout this from the mountaintops in all of my work. So I do see women consciously, or very much often unconsciously, This idea, like, I need to have those kids primarily with me because they need me. They do need you, but they need to see you working and earning, and they need financial stability is what they need. They need to see you smoothing over the relationship with their other parent, because that is what benefits them, right? They need all of these things, but they don't need all those hours and hours with you. That does not benefit anybody at all.
Emma, I can't thank you enough. And I feel like you just spoke to me. I realize that there's 60 other women listening, but you just made my heart sing, because I mean, I'm just going to be real and honest. I've worked from when my kids were itty bitty. In fact, I mean, because I had my own business, my maternity leave with my son was 3 days. Okay, that's a little ridiculous. Let's just be honest. But
It is.
but it is true. But I've had so much guilt of like the fact that I have a thriving career that I absolutely love, and it does take a lot of time. So many women, that is the pitfall that holds them back. It's the feeling that, I'm going through a divorce that's hard enough on the kids, right? And then we go to that next thing of now I'm going to be working, right? And knowing that that's actually healthier for them is a key to freedom.
But and I also call on women to take it even I think the next step, because the pay gap is now this decision. The pay gap, up until quite recently, it really was discrimination in the workplace, but now it has changed, right? Now what is it? Women are 60% of undergraduate students. Men and women are entering the workforce making equal pay, and they stay on equal tracks until women start to have babies, and then they drop out. And that is the pay gap. So when women, and this does speak to women, and I'm calling on everybody here to call each other in our organic lives, to support one another and sticking up, because it inspires one another and absolves each other of this and ourselves of that guilt, right? Because we are making changes for our daughters, for our sons, for our colleagues, and for really women and men everywhere.
I'd love to bring this over to Rona. And then Samantha, you're next. So I'm giving you the heads up, and I'd love to hear from you, Rona. From, you also work as a career coach, and what do you see as some of those big pitfalls for women after divorce, relaunching their career, taking it to the next level?
Oh, Rona, we can't hear you.
Yeah, you're on mute.
There was noise here. And
there
so
you go. Perfect. Okay. Great.
So
yeah.
I think one of the biggest obstacles is what you were all saying, is the guilt, having to do it all. And that life should not change because I go back to work. My kids should remain, pretty much intact. The reality is that when you go back to work, and I saw this with my own mom, okay? Suddenly, I still think she did a little too much. She made sure the pot roast was ready for us to turn on the oven at a certain hour and get the table set and make sure XYZ. And for years, she didn't get a washing machine when it broke down because how could she do that when we were short on funds? So she sent her 2 daughters to 5 loads of wash, once a week. It was ridiculous and the money was insane for that. But I think returning to work, I really value children becoming the adults that they're going to become. And to do that, they have to take some responsibilities. And there was a thing in the chat here, I wish my kids had done more of that. And part of that is, they do push back, but being a family is a team, and you have to take care of each other, and you have to know when someone is overloaded. And I think all of those things are very critical. The other piece, though, is some things just won't get done. Okay? Some things just fall off the plate. And there is nothing wrong with that. And you know what? It kind of doesn't matter. I'll give you another example of that. I used to be more Sabbath observant. And I always took Friday off because I worked for myself at the time. And I would squeeze everything into that day, everything. And you know what happened to that day? I hated Friday. I couldn't wait for it to be over. And I realized I was killing myself. So some of it could be done during the week, and I could maybe go home slightly differently, or better still, some things didn't get done and the world did not fall apart. Okay. The other thing is we find as parents, particularly, we get sucked into that whole thing. Am I doing the best for my kid? Are they going to get into the best school? What if I don't take them to tutoring? What if they don't, get that sports scholarship and all that kind of stuff? And to a certain degree, there's only so much you can do, and there's only so much you can control. And, your kids figure it out too. If they really need to get somewhere and you teach them how to use their resourcefulness, they will. Over the decades, what you were talking about, Emma, is like women having equal pay, but they're not quite equal, by the way. They're still not there. But it's better and better all the time, especially with more transparency coming into the workplace, which New York State just passed. But yes, when they get to be parents, it's really hard to develop that partnership, especially with a high earning spouse who then comes home and says, oh, but I do so much. And, look at this lifestyle and things like that. Well, part of life is growing. It's growing yourself. And to do that, you need to be out in the world, even part-time, so that you can think above and beyond what you mentioned, Emma, and I think Samantha, you don't have to do mommy talk all the time. It's great to have your own circle of support, because we need that. I mean, women are the best networkers in the world for that stuff. But you've got to grow. You've got to keep growing. And I think that's one of the reasons marriages sometimes flounder, is that people sometimes forget to grow, or I'm sure you've heard this, all of you, is like, I've been telling her I want her to go to work because she's just at home and I don't know how to talk to, there's not as much to talk about and stuff. And I'm not saying that's the answer, but we have more than those 20, 25 years at home, and the kids are supposed to be getting more independent. That's called adulting. Okay. And we owe it to them to do this. And they thank us, because, I've seen kids go to college and say, this kid doesn't even know what to do with the laundry. Okay. They don't even know what dishwashing
happen. That kids all of a sudden don't have to do chores. That's like a new phenomenon.
I know.
And it's us,
but we don't let them ride their bicycles in certain places because they could get abducted. I once told my kid she could go to, I'll never forget this. We lived 1.5 miles from the library. She could have walked, but she wanted me to drive her. I said, I don't have the time. It's a mile. You can walk or take your bike. And she looked at me and she goes, I could be abducted. And I was like, you gotta be kidding.
Yeah.
So, we create all of these rationales. And I think the other piece is we want to do the best job we can in whatever role we have. And for a lot of us, it's being the parent, the best parent. But we forget what that really means.
Well,
Andrea, I think you said something, and then we'll make sure we have a little time for Samantha too. I know we're coming up to time.
There's something out there that I remind people about all the time, and it's not always equitable like Emma describes. That's very idyllic. For many of the people I work with, the women are doing it 80-90% of the time.
Right.
But I mean, I have to be real about this, and I owe it to those people in my practice over the last 35 years to say this, that it's, we started off with kids being chattel. We went to the tender years doctrine where they were always with mom. Then we went to the parental alienation thing where dad's got to say. And now a lot of judges start at 50%, even though it often ends up much heavier on mom. But what I say to those moms who are afraid about earning is, so let me get it right. You were one man away from welfare. And then when your kids are older, they'll help you pay your mortgage. And it kind of makes them stop. Because you want your kids to go to college, you want them to have these things, but if you don't have your own resources, they're going to take care of you in a way that you're not anticipating and that you probably don't want. And that feels like a very light bulb thing for a lot of people that I work with, to realize that they don't want to cast that burden onto their children some point off in the future when their maintenance runs out and there's no more child support.
It's just shifting dependency from one family member to another.
It's not intentional. It's that they're struggling and they are working hard. And these are women who are really parenting through pandemic, which I will say is not an easy thing, especially if they're carrying most of the load. And you can still work. You can still earn something that's substantial enough to contribute to the care of your kids and your future, because this is not finite. This is now moving forward.
And your future.
Samantha, do you see any, what do you see as the biggest pitfalls?
Sure.
For
I
women?
think one of the biggest pitfalls I've seen is women who have not been in the workforce discounting the skills that they've gained as a mother, as a household manager,
Yeah.
as a project manager, and how they're very, very capable, but because of not being validated, not having that encouragement or what have you, they just discount all the things that they have learned on the job as a mother, on the job as a wife, as a household manager, and don't see how they can transition that into the actual workforce. But there's so much that they can do. So I think that lack of self-esteem is kind of low, lack of confidence and courage is low, and they're paralyzed with fright and fear, so that it's harder for them to get out there and see the possibilities and see how much they could be earning, so that they can have a sustainable life, and more than sustainable, they can have a life where they're actually just financially thriving, they're healthy and strong. And then the other part too is, because we talk about money a lot, is they don't know how to not just take the money that they're earning, but and managing it better, managing it well, because the mindset is, okay, I'm divorced, I'm a single mom, I'm going to be poor. No, that's just not that's not necessarily true. You may have a temporary cash flow problem, but that can be completely turned around within a year if you have put a plan in place, if you work with a coach, if you work with friends who are in the workforce and who are willing to really help you. So I think those are some of the major pitfalls that they have. The parenting guilt, of course, that could be there as well. But if they come to forums like this and they see, hey, it's not that deep, it's not that hard, but you do have a certain amount of freedom and boundaries you can set within your life, so that you can balance parenting, balance making money, and balance making a life that you actually truly love.
Samantha, you are the perfect person for us to embrace wrapping up, because you just hit on all the pieces and threw the financial savvy in there. So, I mean, we couldn't have anything bigger. But I do want to just pass it over to you, Lisa. So now you're going to look from, watching your clients. What pitfall do you see? What pitfall do you see?
Well, I think that in terms of going out to work, there's a couple, and somebody actually mentioned it in the chat. The issue of childcare. That is definitely a pitfall for women who are going out into the workforce, because in some cases they feel that they are paying more for childcare than they may be earning, and perhaps even they were married to men who told them that for many years they may have told them that it didn't make sense for you to go out to work. It was better for you to stay home. It was easier for all of us. And why should we pay someone to actually engage in childcare when you're going to be making less than the childcare provider? The problem with that concept is that if you're out of the workforce for a period of time, you're losing your ground in the workforce. You're just not going to make up those years of experience, of being able to move up the ladder. And so while it may be true, frankly, that you may be paying the childcare person more than what you're earning right now, the following year and the year after that, it's unlikely to be true, because you will have gained experience and you will be able to go out and make more. And the longer that you're out of the workforce and the longer that your thought process is that way, the more years you're going to lose and you will never catch up. And I think that is one of the biggest pitfalls that I see for women. And then, of course, this concept of being discouraged from going out to the workforce during the marriage, and then coming now to being married 20 or 25 years or even 15. And now it's no longer, what was mine was yours. Okay. And you've got a spouse who has been out in the workforce, who has taken that ladder, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I was planning on sharing that all the way through my retirement, but that's not the reality. The reality is we're going to look at the assets as of the date that the divorce was commenced, and we're going to cut up those assets, and then we're going to look for a period of time of spousal support. And if you don't, if you've relied upon that thought process, you're going to be in very big trouble. And you could, as Andrea talked about, be one man away from welfare at that point. This concept, and I applaud women who have stayed home and taken care of their children and wanted to do that and raised a family and been there for their husbands. But the reality is that the courts are not very kind to those women. They just are not.
Yeah.
And we need to teach our daughters, frankly, better, and we need to teach ourselves better, because we should not be being put in that position. So one thing I'm going to say to all those women who want to think that what's mine is ours, then get a great prenup or get a great postnup that actually designates all of that, because if it's not in writing and you're in court, you're going to have a tough road.
There's a great bumper sticker out there. You can Google it. It's A Man Is Not a Financial Plan. It's one of my favorite bumper stickers. And I have to tell you, I have a client who will go nameless right now. Her financial plan, she goes bankrupt at 65. And it doesn't matter what we tell her, because her solution, she said, I'm just going to marry a rich guy. That is her. And it just, I'll be honest, it makes my stomach churn, because she's now beholden to be with whoever because he has money. Who wants a life like that? And that's why everyone is here. We can provide for ourselves. We are smart. This financial investment stuff is not rocket science. You totally got it. And any support you need, we are here at Savvy Ladies. I also want to make sure that you know about the helpline. I'm going to go ahead and bring this over to Judy to talk more about the helpline. But before I do that, I want to say the most sincere thank you to our panelists that we have this evening. I have to tell you, these are some of the busiest ladies I've ever met. And Andrea, Samantha, Emma, Rona, and you, Lisa, as one of our moderators, I can't thank you enough for volunteering your time, being so courageous, and really being so supportive for us to hear this message. And I know for me, I'm feeling better about myself than I have in a long time, and I'm ready just to go back to work. I'll have dinner, I'll see the kids, but I have no problem with it. So thank you so much. And Judy, I'd love for you to just go ahead and talk a little bit more about the helpline. I'll put it in the chat too, but that's where you can get some of this very important one-on-one financial advice tailored to your situation.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It really was a special evening, and I thank all of our speakers tonight, and thank you, Stacy and Lisa. Savvy Ladies Helpline is really unique out there. There is no other place that you can come and be matched based on your question with a certified financial planner or a financial professional who wants to answer your question and has that expertise. So it could be divorce, it could be budgeting, it could be retirement. So please visit the Savvy Ladies Helpline. As I said, we are helping over 150 women per month right now, and we have been growing our volunteer base. So there is an intake form on our website. If you go on mobile, it's Get Help. It takes you directly to the intake form. We will get back to you and match you one-to-one within 3 calendar days. So that is phenomenal. And our volunteers are absolutely wonderful, and we'll work with you to answer those questions. So as we heard tonight, networking is really key, but it's also building your budget, understanding your budget, and what is that budget that you need today could be different than you need for your future. So they will help you with that journey. As I like to say, we're building that financial roadmap for you, and we'll help you along that way. So Savvy Ladies is here for you. I am thrilled that everyone enjoyed tonight's conversation. I think we all learned a lot, and a really interesting dialogue amongst our panelists and in the chat tonight. Savvy Ladies will be continuing with programming, and we also will be continuing with networking. We have many ways to support Savvy Ladies. We have membership, we have our panels, and at this point also, I want to thank all of our sponsors for the divorce series, Getting Savvy About Your Divorce, Zeiderman Miller, Francis Financial, HelloPrenup, Guberman Advisors, Marcum, Soberlink, Worthy, Wealthy Single Mommy, MFL Coaching, and Rona Wexler. Thank you for being a great supporter and sponsor of our programming tonight. So everyone, thank you so much. Have a safe evening, and you'll get all the videos very soon. I promise.